right, we're back for another week. Sean, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Week 5, bro. Week 5. Cheers to you, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, got the AFC North this go round.
AFC
How do you
North. Very
how do
very
you feel
interesting
about that?
division. Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
it is. It really is. And once again, like you don't really know until you start to do the deep dive, and then you start to see how the storylines are going to play out. And
Right.
I'm glad we decided to go this route. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I wasn't excited about this division until I got into the research. I was like, okay, all right, they got some interesting pieces. Let's see
Yeah.
how this goes.
Yeah.
Couple housekeeping notes up top. More
Definitely.
players are opting out, man. How you feel about that?
I can't say I'm surprised. You know what I mean? Like the shoe kind of dropped, and then you saw one player, and the Patriots, man. I don't know
Ooh,
what
they're
they're gonna do.
decimated, man.
Yeah. And then you kind of see it's really a lot of big names for the Patriots, but then the rest of the teams kind of a collection of maybe mid to lower tier guys getting that stipend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it's the regular stipend or the high risk stipend. But they do have to pay that back. So it's an interesting to see if any more names are going to drop before that deadline.
Well, a player that got put on the COVID reserve list, Stafford, ended up having a negative test.
Right? Like, how does that happen? And they said that he had a couple of negative tests before.
Right.
Then he tested positive, and then like he had negative tests after. So, interestingly enough, they were trying to go the other route and saying, well, what if those negative tests were actually positive tests? So it's like the science is sometimes flawed, even though it's very
Right.
good most of the time. So.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think this is going to affect the season though? Like, are they going to be able to trust these tests? Or are they going to second guess everything as they go? Like, that's what I'm worried about.
You know what? The fans will second guess everything, especially if it's a player that they
It's not real.
Right,
It's not real.
right. Especially if it's a player that they want or a integral player. But
Right.
I think you'll probably have it happen maybe one or two more times with as many tests as they're going to be. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I could see it happening, but hopefully, and I would say just in real life, I was about to say IRL, man. I've been online too much, but
Say Twitter, man. Come on.
right, exactly. It happens more often than not that it's actually if a positive is a positive and a negative is a negative. So it turns out to be
Yeah.
true most of the time. So I take the word for it of
Yeah.
the science. So, you know.
Well, we also got another chapter in the AB saga. Suspended 8 games.
Finally, it dropped. That other shoe dropped as well.
Right. If you could put him on any team in the NFL for the second half of the season,
Okay.
what team would you put him on? Play GM Sean Sudler here.
Let's see. Well, I got my answer, and
Okay.
the answer will probably shock you, but
Yeah.
I'm going to say
Go.
the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would
You
put
think
them.
that they all could be happy again.
No, unfortunately, I don't. But in this scenario, they drafted a wide receiver, but they still do not have a game breaker. Like they don't have a real game breaker, or that guy has yet to step up. So,
I think Juju will be there.
well, he will, but like he's got to stay healthy, which we'll get into them
Yeah,
a little bit
yeah,
later. But
yeah,
like you
right.
saw what Juju was able to do when he had a dynamic receiver on the other side.
Yeah.
Can
he
he-
doesn't do too well with the double team.
Exactly. So, and now he's the number one guy. It's going to focus on him. Stay tuned. We'll get into it. So.
Okay, yeah, I like it. But
But Steelers, I stay the Steelers, yeah.
Ooh, I want to see what damage he
sauce.
could do on the Ravens.
Oh yeah. That's it. God, man, it's interesting that we both picked teams from the division that we're about to cover.
Yeah,
That's
I guess it was on my mind. I don't know.
Right,
But,
yeah.
I don't want Seattle to get any better. You know
Seattle
what I
need to
mean?
leave people alone, man. Like,
Right.
come
like,
on.
Metcalf, Lockett, and Brown, and if you got Gordon back, like that wide receiver core would be ridiculous.
It would be ridiculous. But then you run into the problem of, is there enough balls to go around? Can you get all those guys on the field?
If anyone could find the touches for everybody, it'd be Russell Wilson, though.
It would be. He's a guy that, like, he's one of those quarterbacks that guys won't come to with that kind of BS. You know what I mean? Because like they just know he's that type of guy. He's going to do his best for the team 100% of the
He's
time.
like,
So
we're gonna win,
Right.
So if you're that part of the winning, then I got you. But
Exactly. So, AFC North, man, I'm excited. So, where you want to start, Drew? How you want to do it?
let's get into those. The champs of the division. We got Baltimore Ravens.
Ah, okay. Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
Oh,
You were talking about how you were excited about the Redskins draft. I was excited about these
Washington.
guys draft. Washington football team. So sorry.
Washington. It's Washington.
That's 30. This is going to be the typical white dude answer here. That's 34 years I've been calling it. I don't know what to tell you.
I tell you, hey man, you know what America needs to do is now have like a swear jar, but for calling them, you know what I'm saying, the old name. But
they showed their helmets today.
Oh, that's right. They did.
They went straight Alabama style, just with the like you said earlier. They had the just the numbers on the side.
Yeah. They so straight Alabama style, like Drew said. And you know what? If they do this year, they better be cooking up some fire in the lab with this logo now. Come on now.
They need to be partnering with Nike every step of the way.
Sure.
Like, get your logo designers on it. Like, come with something really good.
And it needs to be dynamic because they're going to need, with all the, bad press and all the, lengthy time without having a logo and in the name and all that stuff, they're going to need to blow folks out of the water. And I really hope they get it right.
I hope they go Red Tails.
It will be a good name. I do like that they kept the color scheme, though. Because this is very distinct.
Yeah. It is. It's unique.
Right.
No other team has it.
Yeah. So I love that. Oh, another question that I have for you, man. We were just talking about opting out, right?
Yeah.
I was talking about this with some of my guys at work, but do you think that the players are opting out of the Patriots and coming through in droves? Do you think that's a rebellion against Belichick's coaching style?
I mean, I've been curious about this ever since Gronk came back very willingly.
Mm-hmm.
When he realized, hey, I'm not going to have to play for Belichick.
Right.
So that's been in the back of my mind ever since he came out of retirement like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of a.
I just don't think they want to play for him. Like,
yeah.
That's crazy. Like, I can see that, like he's definitely like.
Right. And
you play football to have fun. Like, yes, it's a business.
Yeah.
But you got into the game to have fun. You know what I mean? Like, I've had that coach that didn't make it fun. And
right.
So I understand completely.
Yeah, and that can wear on you. And I wonder, and the reason I bring that up, or I brought that up, is because like now guys have, I don't want to say an excuse, but it can lessen the blow of people not wanting to play for Belichick. And maybe if these big name players are doing this, maybe behind the scenes they're like, this is what you get, man. Like, you're not making it fun here, or we don't like the environment, whatever it may be. Yeah. But I think there might be a little bit something more to it. So I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely could be the answer. The crazy thing about the Patriots organization, they're so lock and key, we'll never know.
Exactly. So we can only speculate. That's
right.
So it's kind of one of those things. But
yes, let's get into this Ravens draft.
Yes,
that I'm excited about.
Yes,
Patrick Queen, first pick, linebacker at LSU. I think he's going to be a great player for that defense. They get J.K. Dobbins in the second round. Like, add more running potential to that already stacked running game.
Right, and
I think they did great.
They actually did, and their top 4 picks. I really, really like. I mean, they got Patrick Queen. We talk about pedigree guys on the show all the time. He's a very speedy linebacker and is just another linebacker to come out of that program. First round linebacker, speedy guy, rushes the passer very well. Like, he rushes the passer very, very well. And then they go in round 2 and they get a guy who falls to them in J.K. Dobbins. I mean, he was kind of a luxury pick, but a damn good one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
We know that Ingram's still going to be there, but to add that punch.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I think they can make it work because, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but Mark Ingram is like, honestly, he's probably my favorite running back in the league. Just like the off-the-field personality, the way he runs the ball.
The way he looks at Lamar Jackson.
Right, yeah, exactly. Loving his eyes, man. It's the same way I look at you, my guy. It's the same way I look at you.
Right back at you.
Right, man. So, but anyway, coming back in round 3, they get Justin Madubuike out of Texas A&M, and he, again, is a luxury pick because he's not even, looking at their depth chart, and we'll talk about the defense in a second, but he's not even starting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, very good guy. did a lot of damage in that SEC. So, and then they come back in the fourth round and get Devin Duvernay, a dynamic playmaker, a down the field threat. He's a little small. I don't know where
you said his name first because I was.
Yeah, so out of Texas, and he's a guy who is dynamic. I want to say he averaged 13.1, had 9 TDs last year for the Longhorns. So
for a Texas team that did okay.
Right, exactly. So he was
numbers.
I think he was their guy. And that's 4 deep. So like we were saying, if you get 4 out of a draft that are going to stick on your team, very good draft for you.
Their other pick in the third round, Harrison, the linebacker at Ohio State, is going to make some waves.
They are expecting him to do a lot of good things as well, and that's something that, like I said, once we would talk about to the defense, because I'm a little suspect on that those linebackers, but a little nugget there. I don't think it's going to matter.
Some fresh blood.
They do. They really do. So
if the old stablemates aren't working out, they got who's next? Next man up.
Yeah. And they have a roster that's deep enough to do that, which a lot of folks is a lot of teams actually don't have. So it's definitely a luxury for them. But what I'm kind of excited about is they're not excited about, but they had, for a team that went as deep in the playoffs as they went, they had a lot of roster turnover or a good bit of roster turnover. They add Calais Campbell, right? Still, he had 6.5 sacks last year, but I think he was done playing for Jacksonville. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think he cared to be there anymore.
Right, so. Exactly. So he's a guy. He can take over a game easy. They add Derek Wolfe from the Broncos, so they get him. And then you have Marcus Peters there, who has a full year in the offseason. He got traded, last year. And then adding to that secondary, they re-sign a couple guys, Jihad Ward, Matt Judon, who is their starter. Re-sign their draftee Jimmy Smith, who's been there for a while, but now he's backing up. And then you have Matt Skura and Pernell McPhee. Those are all re-signed guys, so they're keeping their own. You don't really need to change much when you're that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you got a bunch of guys that are definitely on the team to win.
Sure. Sure.
Earl Thomas, Marcus Peters,
yes,
Campbell, like you said, those guys they're at the stage in their career where they've made their money.
Right. Exactly.
They want to be respected by the team that they're on,
and they want to win.
That's what their coach gives them, and they want to win.
Yeah, and they want to win. And now they do lose a couple guys. They lost Tony Jefferson, Marshall Yonda, the All-Pro, future Hall of Famer, retired. And then they also lose Brandon Carr, but they do replace those guys. So I do like it, and I like their team. I really think, kind of moving on to the offense, they didn't lose too much to not be exactly where they were last year.
Exactly.
So
they're not a pass heavy team, but they got adequate receivers. You know what I mean? If they want to. You know what I mean? Willie Snead, Marquise Brown will get it done.
And Drew, I'll be honest with you. You put you took the words right out of my mouth, because their receivers are adequate, right? They can get the job done, but they don't have anybody who really scares me as far as receiving is concerned.
If you add Antonio Brown, though,
I mean, you might be right though. They're gonna have to wait 8. But if you do add Antonio Brown or then a true number one, because last year Hollywood Brown started off fire. I had him on my fantasy team, and then he kind of was hit or miss. Willie Snead is consistent. Miles Boykin's consistent. But really, when you add in a Mark Andrews, their tight end, who I think he had 10 touchdowns last year. Yeah, so if you add him, that takes some of the weight off. Now you also have to.
He was your leading receiver, but he only had 850 yards.
Exactly, and that's from a tight end. That's Pro Bowl status, right? That's from a tight end.
They had 2 players, almost 3, that had more rushing yards than that.
Exactly. So, I mean, we have to talk about the returning MVP, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, of course.
Can he?
I mean, he ran for 1,200 yards.
He ran for as many yards as most running backs,
and threw for 31.
He threw right, so, and that's. But they were so balanced as far as rushing and passing. Definitely more toward the rushing side, but they kept other teams off balance so much. That's why I think that you were able to have him just throw for 3,000 yards, because he added another 1,200 on the ground. Now he threw for what did he throw for? 36 TDs. right? Threw for 36. Only six picks. Now, he rushed for 1206.
They talked about his accuracy, and he showed them last year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not bad for a running back, to quote Lamar Jackson.
I love that.
Right. So,
I love that.
But 7 TDs on the ground, too. Now, he did have 8 fumbles, right? He did have 8 fumbles rushing.
He if I'm watching, which, by the way, watching them play last year, I didn't know who was getting the ball. Like, they threw off everybody.
Right.
You know? Like,
yeah. And that's the kind of balance you get with them.
3 tight end sets. Like, come on.
Yeah. And that's the kind of balance that you get. So if you don't know what's coming, you don't necessarily need to have, or they showed you don't need to have a true number one in order to get to that stage in the game. Now, do they need one to put them over the top? The question has yet to be answered, right?
I mean, when you're 0-2 in the playoffs the last 2 years,
you might need to add something. But that's the thing is, like, could they have added that guy instead of picking J.K. Dobbins, which was a luxury pick like we just talked about? You know what I mean?
Because, I mean, Gus Edwards is still in the team.
Right, and he's a great backup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have Mark Ingram, you have J.K. Dobbins. We kind of alluded that you could still use a true number one raw receiver. And that, I mean, as far as the O-line, like, they're solid. Like, that O-line is solid.
I mean, they proved that last year.
Exactly.
Like, anyone could have ran the ball. I could have had a.
Oh, you'd had at least 1,000. You'd have had at least 1,000. Yeah. Now, what I love though is their scouting is so good. They just keep adding talent, but they kind of let the draft kind of fall. They don't really reach, and they just pick good players. Everybody, Orlando Brown, their starting right tackle, the young guy, he bombed the combine. Like, he bombed the combine. And we talk about pedigree. His dad's a Hall of Famer, right? So he comes in, he has that pedigree. He proved he can do it on the tape, but then he bombs the combine. Everybody's down on him, and now he's starting for a 14-2 team. Right, exactly. Yeah. So that is, you stick to your board, you watch the tape. You don't get to the combine and kind of let a bad day throw you off from which you already confirmed and you really know in your gut. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but how about this defense? Like, obviously they're going to score points.
Yeah.
But do they have to have, the Mike D'Antoni approach to where you just score more than your opponent, or is this a defense that can actually shut down some opposing offense?
Well, if they can keep people, because now there's a whole year of tape again, but like if they can keep people off guard, the defense is still going to be there. Like this defensive line, they add Calais Campbell. You have Matt Judon, who I love, wanted him when he came out. Derek Wolfe is a serviceable guy. They pay him money to come on over from Denver. And then you got this secondary, man. I mean, I love it. Now, you lose Tony Jefferson, but Chuck Clark has been a guy who has been steady for the last 3 years that he's been there, since I want to say 2017, and didn't really know a lot about him until we started to get in. He's solid, and they starting him because they want to give him the full reins. Nobody not looking over his shoulder or anything like that. Earl Thomas is still a guy, 10th year in the league. And Marcus Peters still wants to prove it. So that back end, man. I think
those two guys are both hungrier than they've ever been. Probably,
right. Yeah. And this with this D line, if they really get on it, I think they could be. Let's say they could be top 5. Top 3, top 5. If they really get it going. The secondary, like we just alluded to, is stout as hell. I'm a little worried about the linebackers, but the front 4 and the back 4 are so good. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to disrespect Baltimore, but they kind of hide that second level. You know what I mean? I don't know what you're going to get from a rookie in Patrick Queen. I know he's going to be good, but
also you got to get adjusted to the game.
Exactly. So
I got to feel like linebacker might be one of the toughest transitions from college to the pros.
You're right, man.
You got to rely on speed, and they say it's way faster.
Yeah, and that's one thing he does possess. He has speed, but is the game too fast for him? You know what I mean? Like, how quickly does he make that?
He's got to be able to decide.
Exactly.
Can he be sideline to sideline?
Yeah, and they have Pernell McPhee. They did re-sign him. Didn't know if they were going to re-sign him, but they do. And then the young guy in Jalen Ferguson. So there's some talent there. Obviously there's talent there, but like in the scheme. But I don't want the front 4 and the back 4 to hide them. I want to see those guys shine on their own. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. I got you. So a little bit of note, they do have one of the best kickers in the game. So
they do. Help. Yeah, that does help.
Won many a game 15-9 because their kicker is Tucker.
And that's how you know he's good, is because we have to mention him.
Right, I had to. He's carried my fantasy team many a year.
Yeah, I do hate it when a kicker like wins you a game. I hate to be on the other side. I hate to lose to a kicker.
Of course.
Right?
I'll take it all day. I'll
right.
be like, my kicker beat you.
Yeah. So that's
well,
it just pisses me off. But
it's hard to improve off of 14-2.
Very hard.
You know what I mean? So what do you? How do you feel they're going to finish this year?
So, I do think that they will still be at the top of this division, but I think that they take a step back. I looked at they were 14-2 last year. I've got them going 11-5 this year.
Okay.
So
I do got Kansas City week 3. I'm excited about that game.
Yeah. So if I'm like looking at their schedule, if I can get it to come up here, yeah. So they didn't do them any favors coming out the gate, and if you don't know what you're gonna get from any team early in the season, so they start off with Cleveland, Houston, and Kansas City. Like
that's tough. I mean, Cleveland could be a good team. We'll get to them in a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly. So
that could be a tough battle week 1.
Yeah.
The Ravens off guard.
Right, and they did get one on the Ravens last year, if you remember. So like they split. So who's going to win that game? I don't know. And then you got to go to Houston, and then you got the Super Bowl champs, right? So that's why I could see, and they got some tough teams on their slate, and this division is not a slouch. So
after their bye week, they got Colts, Pats, Titans, Steelers,
and then
Cowboys.
Steelers, right? So that's four tough teams after the bye. Like good thing that you have your bye to prepare for those 4 teams, or the next 2 teams, I would say. But they do have a tough schedule, so I do see them taking a little step back for sure.
It does help them that they got a cake schedule down the stretch, though.
Yes. And the reason why I still have them at the top of this division, not to give too much away, but like I just don't see the teams that they're scheduled to play. I just don't see those teams beating this team. Like I just don't see it.
I
so
hear you. I mean, they didn't last year.
Right, exactly. So it's more the same for the Ravens. The key again, quarterback. Can people stop the rushing attack? If they can stop Lamar's rushing and kind of box him up. He's proved he can pass, so like let's take that out of the equation. But
stop
it takes away an element of his game. So, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, next up, their bitter rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Steelers. Every bar that is outside of Pittsburgh winds up being a Steeler bar, and I hate it.
Oh, you got to.
I hate it. Yeah, I hate it. But
Well, how do you feel about their draft? I know you're pretty high. No first round pick, but you're a little bit high on their.
Very high on Chase Claypool. I have receipts, folks. Again, I have receipts.
He did.
I'm buying it. But Chase Claypool, man, like out of Notre Dame, he was not on my radar until I started, scouting wide receivers. And this dude is a monster. Like he is huge, and he runs faster than he looks like he can run. And he's just a big body, man. He is a big body receiver. Pittsburgh,
so fast and possession.
Yes, exactly. So, and kind of a running theme here with the Steelers, but they make wide receivers. Like Antonio Brown came out of nowhere. Juju Smith-Schuster was highly touted, but he fell down in the draft. Winded up being worth that pick. James Washington. Right. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, the guy who shot himself, like that guy, like they just make receivers. So Chase Claypool is going to be another one. Plaxico Burress. But they make wide receivers. So and they come back in round Smith. They come back in round 3 and get Highsmith out of Charlotte. Watch this tape, and he looks very fast for a defensive end. Like he's got some aggression to him, and I don't know if he just feasted on lower level talent. We will find out, right? But
they thought mighty high of him to take him in the 3rd round.
Exactly. So he looks good, man. So I aside from those two, they don't really have a lot that kind of jumps out to me, but I do like those 2 picks.
Anthony McFarland Jr.
Maryland.
Out of Maryland had some good games.
He did.
So I can vouch for him. I've watched a couple of his college games, and he could be one of those guys that they turn into a great, because they're also known for turning in running backs too. So. True. They do kind of come out of nowhere, and that's what I love, man. I love when you draft guys and they come up in your system and they wind up being stalwarts, and that's how you remain good. Like that's how you stay consistent and you stay in the playoffs and you draft well. So. Shout to the scouts, man. Shout to the scouts. We have to address it with the Steelers. Big Ben. He back. He's been throwing.
Yeah, he's back. Do you?
I don't know for what it counts for, but one of his receivers said he looks better than before.
Well,
I mean, of course they're gonna.
Right, exactly. That's the classic trope. Classic trope.
I mean, could we see a healthy return to action, Big Ben?
That's the huge question for this team. But I know they're glad he's back, and kind of not necessarily moving along. We'll get to it in a second. But even with injuries to key positions, they still went 8-8.
Yeah,
I mean,
they went 8-8 with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges.
Exactly. So that's a testament to the coach.
They got Paxton Lynch now. So,
oh,
yeah.
Super Bowl.
Watch out for that guy.
Super Bowl. I'm telling you. But what I do like is they're still trying to add talent. They do bring in Stefan Wisniewski, 2-time Super Bowl champ. They do bring in Eric Ebron to really solidify that tight end position. And he's a guy who, and I also, this is something else I love to see, but like guys who come out with big names and big talent, big expectations, but they don't necessarily hit it, but then they still live up to the draft stats. He's been a consistent guy. He's been better later on in his career,
a goal line guy,
right, than he has been at the start. So he's still
not a game changing tight end.
No,
but he is going to get you 10 touchdowns if given the chance.
If given a chance, and Big Ben loves to throw to his tight ends. Like he does love to throw to his tight ends.
And you still got Vance McDonald behind him, so I mean, it's
exactly.
Not like,
but I
think
think
he doesn't pan out, they're in trouble.
That's well, you're right. But that's one of the questions for me is like if Big Ben is healthy, offense could again be tops in the league, right? With him throwing and him knowing an offense and just kind of running back
Samuels and Connor at running back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, see, that's another thing. So with James Conner, he's got to stay healthy. Like he was one of the guys who missed times last year. I love James Conner. I love James Conner off the field, especially for what he went through off the field. Like shout to him, man. Which he's obviously shown that he can beat that and come back and be a good running back. But he's good, not great. So I want to see him. I want to see him.
I think they got to use both of them.
Sure.
I think they need to rely way more on Samuels this year.
Yeah. It would be nice to have more of a split with them, and then kind of throw some teams off too. So what I do love is I think with those running backs it's being consistent. I do like their wide receiver core. So maybe Chase Claypool, James Washington. I think Claypool starts over Deontay Johnson. He'll be the third wide receiver. They'll mix it up a little there.
Yeah. Especially if he shows what you were talking about in minicamp. You know what I mean?
So. You're right. So because training camp is like actually I think it's getting started now.
Shout out to Ryan Switzer for still being on the NFL roster.
I saw his name. Yeah.
Way undersized.
Yep.
Should not have made it to the league to begin with, but good for him.
I mean, some people just do it, man. They just know how to stay on teams. So, I guess a question for you, Drew, is like, does Big Ben play all 16 games? Because we don't know how that elbow is going to hold up once we get started. Like it's fine with nobody hitting him.
I think he does. Like I think he's got good history of coming back from injuries. You know what I mean? Like he's not been like yes, he's getting older.
Right.
So that's going to be a big variable that he's going to have to overcome. But he's proven in the past to bounce back pretty good from injuries. Like I can't remember 2 seasons back to back that he didn't play a lot.
You're right.
Like I do remember him missing big chunks of seasons, but that next year,
right back at it.
Playoff.
Yeah, and him being so big definitely helps that, man. Him to take those hits.
That motorcycle crash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that should have took out.
They're professional athletes for a reason, folks.
Right. Like, good God.
But moving along to their defense, what I love though is Stephon Tuitt. He back. Like I love watching him play.
They got a great front seven.
Great minds, man. Great lines, because that's literally what I have in my notes. Like as the first thing it says, front seven is great.
I'm in love with their linebackers. Like if I could take this linebacker group and just take it to the Panthers, I would do that in a heartbeat. Yeah, like I love this linebacker.
Well, and T.J. Watt, I mean, like it's just one of those things. Like I don't have a brother, but I know if I had a brother, I'd be even more competitive than I am right now.
He wants to be better than J.K.
He wants to be better, and I don't know if he gets there, but you cannot mention them, or you have to mention them separately, right? Like you have to mention JJ and TJ, and then they also, just a quick little note there, they add Derek Watt as the fullback this time, but so he gets to play with his brother. But I love their linebackers, Devin Bush, will always be synonymous with Devin White because they were the two highly touted linebackers, and both have proved to be very worthy of their selections. They didn't know which one was going to be over. But TJ Watt, Devin Bush, I love Cameron Hayward. Love watching him play.
I'm a Bud Dupree fan.
Bud Dupree, man, and they I want to say they franchised him, right? Like they franchised him. Yeah, I want to say they did. Yeah, they franchised him. So okay. I just love what they're doing. Like that defense is going to be there. They carried them last year, and then you have the trifecta in the secondary. Now,
good God, man.
Yeah, Joe Hayden's still doing the thing, man.
Yeah, for sure. So is Edmonds and, like you said, Edmonds and Fitzpatrick.
Edmonds and Fitzpatrick. Minka, God, I wanted Minka bad, man. I wanted Minka so bad, and then he went to Miami. And then you didn't really hear from him at first, and then they stopped switching positions on him since he can do so much. One of those hybrid guys stuck him at one position, balls out enough that he now commanded it. He wanted out of Miami, got out of Miami, and then just balls out when he gets to Pittsburgh. Like he's showing you this what he had all along.
Scary.
Defense is very scary. And they've been that way for so long, man. Like they've been that way for so long, and as long as you had a coaching staff, like I don't think that changes, man.
I mean, regardless of how you feel about Mike Tomlin, you got to give him credit for being a great coach. Great coach, man. And you want to know what the crazy thing is if you look at a lot of those older teams, like back in the 2000s, the people that they had on their coaching staff, or even in the 90s, like those coaching staffs go deep, and there's a lot of head coaches now that were on those teams, man. And like going back to the Ravens, I mean, I was just watching the 2002 Eagles Buccaneers NFC Championship game today, and John Harbaugh, I want to say, was their special teams coach, and I saw him and I was like, oh wow, I didn't even know. Yeah, it's crazy. I love finding out about coaching trees. Like, oh, he was his assistant.
Yep.
Like I love finding out about
exactly. So
this team went 8-8 in 2019 with all of its troubles.
Yep.
You got to think they go up from here.
So they were 8-8 in 2019 with those injuries. So looking back to last year, they were 8-5, right? They were 8-5. They lose the last 3 to end the year. For me, I think they take a step back, man. I think looking at their schedule, I just don't know if I want to hope that Big Ben can do it, and they can, they can prove me wrong, but their schedule is really tough, and honestly, I think that they could start 2-5. I really think they could start 2-5, because they do have kind of a tough schedule. I mean, they start off with New York, that's a dub. Denver, I think they get a dub there, but like that next 5, Houston, at Tennessee, versus Philly, versus Cleveland, and then at Baltimore. Like,
I mean, and then they got the Cowboys after the.
And then they got the Cowboys, right? So their schedule is tough. It's very tough.
Okay. I mean, now that I'm seeing it, I can understand them going like.
Yeah, so I have them going 7-9. Yep, I got them going 7-9. I think they take a step back, man. Yeah,
I'm gonna stick with 8-8.
Okay, so
I think they stay 8-8. Like they get players back.
Right.
They'll pull out a win here and there. They'll split maybe with Baltimore.
Right. Yeah. I think it's very curious because how they do in the division. Really, if they wind up beating a lot of the teams in the division, then I think they're way over 7-9, right? But like that division is gonna be a lot tougher this year.
A lot tougher.
So that's where I got them, man. Unfortunately for y'all, Steel City, don't blame me.
They've had their time. Don't be mad.
Right, exactly. I want some new blood, man. I'm not hating. Right? Like I'm not hating.
I love the Chiefs, Ravens, Bills thing we got going on.
Yeah, and that I do love seeing that young quarterbacks. High flying offenses, they're a lot of fun to watch. Like, give me more of that. Like, let me get that every Sunday. You know what I mean? So I do love to see some change at the top, man. Some change at the top.
Well, speaking of possible changes at the top, a team that's always on the verge of breaking out. We got the Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns.
Like every year is going to be their year, right?
I mean, it's been that way for a while, man. And I got a little spot in my heart for the Cleveland Browns, man, because my team and the Cleveland Browns have been in lockstep with futility and bad team after bad team. I mean, like, it's one of those things. So I always kind of root for them as an underdog. Now kind of starting with their draft, man. Jedrick Wills. It was a great pick, and I really really like what he was able to do. I thought that we were gonna get him, and they were gonna take Tristan Wirfs because, like I said, Tristan Wirfs was supposed to go, based on the combine, was thought to go a lot higher, and I thought Jedrick Wills was gonna fall to us. He was actually my number 2 tackle that I wanted. So I wanted Andrew Thomas, and then second was Jedrick Wills. Browns are smart. They took him.
Are they?
Well, I mean, they have a lot of talent on this team, man, and they follow that up, and they take Grant Delpit, who fell to them.
Yeah.
And the reason why he
fell. Does LSU have any players left? Like, I feel like every team.
Well, they're gonna replenish. They're gonna replenish. Yeah, because Ogeron's a good coach, man. Like, I want him to be my Siri, my navigation voice, right? Like, I want that to happen. That's what I want.
That should automatically click when you go into Louisiana,
right?
Like, it should automatically change over to his voice.
Remember, you got that idea here, Louisiana. Remember, you got it right here, okay?
Can't have it.
Right, but I love Grant Delpit. His coverage is elite. Like, it's great, but he had a little bit of a down year in tackling. So I think with being in the pros and being around pros, that does get a little bit better. Maybe not in the first year being a rookie, but eventually you'll get exactly what you thought you were going to get out of him.
Okay.
So I really think that they've been hunting that safety spot too. They've been hunting that safety spot for a while. Hadn't been able to lock it down. Hopefully they nail it with this pick. So, and I do like Jordan Elliott, their next pick, the DT. I want to say out of Missouri. Yeah. He was one of the top. I want to say top 25, top 30 in PFF. Right. Still fell to the 3rd round, so they got good value with him. And kind of looking. We'll get into their roster a little bit, but this particular roster did have a lot of turnover. It had a lot of turnover. You lose Christian Kirksey, you lose Demarius Randall, you lose your longtime guy in Joe Schobert. You also lose Morgan Burnett and Rashard Higgins. Now, talking about the safeties, you add Carl Joseph, a young guy, maybe a little bit overrated. Once he got into the league, he was a guy, I want to say out of West Virginia, but I wanted him on my team. He got into the league. I was like glad we didn't pick him. But he's still a guy that has talent and can get some things done for you. So I think he has yet to hit his ceiling. Jack Conklin. They want to add some beef to that O-line, and we'll get to them in a second because it's looking good. So
how do you feel about this offense? There is reports that Baker's coming into camp a little leaner.
Okay, well, I want that for Baker. I want to see Baker do well so he can start running his mouth again.
Right. I mean, that's the best Baker.
Yes. Now, talking about this offense, Drew, you moved along right at the right time because basically what they have done is put it all on Baker Mayfield. There's no excuses for Baker Mayfield this year because that offensive line is stout. So much talent around him. I mean, Jedrick Wills, the rookie, he is going to be stout. Like, I know it. So, Joel Bitonio, another good guard. J.C. Treader, good center. I don't really know much about the right guard, but Jack Conklin earned everything he has gotten. I love Jack Conklin. And then, you have one of the top 2, not top 2, but you have a top running back core, Nick Chubb. Give him the ball, please. Yeah. Give him the ball.
Just get out of his way.
And let him do it, man. He can catch passes. He can run. He can do it all.
When he gets tired, give it to Kareem Hunt.
And then you got Kareem Hunt, the knucklehead. So they have a good running back core, and their wide receiver core you can match up with any other wide receiver core in the league except you know who. But I mean Odell Beckham and Juice Landry, man. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones, he was a guy in Michigan who did a lot of work. And then it goes 4 deep, and you got a speedy guy in Taywan Taylor. So. No, they didn't lose Rashard Higgins. They re-signed Rashard Higgins. Excuse me, I messed that up. So he's still in their depth chart too. So their wide receiver core is. Go ahead.
And they brought in Austin Hooper.
Right, exactly. So now you got
quality tight end.
Yep. Yep. And he was a guy, because, he was from Atlanta. Like, he was a guy that I really wasn't, like, bleh. He didn't scare me or whatever. But then, like, the last couple years, he just started getting more touchdowns, things like that, and earned himself a nice little payday. And they still have David Njoku, who I don't know if he is still on the team.
He wants out, right?
Yeah, he does want out. And not only that, but they also draft Harrison Bryant from I want to say Florida Atlantic, and he is a receiving tight end.
He's 6'5", 240.
Yeah, and he is a receiving tight end, a guy who can
catch
very well.
Up, do some two tight ends.
Right, and maybe they can get something for Njoku.
Dream right there.
Yeah, so it's all on Baker, man. Like, and now not only is it all on Baker, but they also brought in Case Keenum.
Yeah.
So I mean, I want to. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure, but I want to say Kevin Stefanski, their coach, was in Minnesota when Case Keenum was there, or maybe I don't know when he came over, but like there might be some history there, so maybe that's why he comes in. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So if Baker doesn't get it done, man, and it starts to get down to it, you got too many talented guys on this team, too many stars for Baker to hold them back. So if it goes badly, I could see them trying to save the season, even if you just bench him for maybe a game or two, because you do spend that high pick on Baker Mayfield, but they need him to get it right. He's got to get it right.
Coach has to win too. Like, you
exactly.
Think the coach is on the hot seat. Like all Cleveland Browns coaches are all the time.
Right.
And it went. That's got to be in his mind the whole time.
Yeah, and it went very bad for Freddie Kitchens last year, and the last offseason coming into 2019. Hot team again, and they thought he was going to do it, especially because you had that continuity with him in the 2018 season. So it's like, I just want them to get it right, man. I do too, man. Football is better when the Cleveland Browns are good. It's just one of those teams. The same thing with college. Like, to me, college football is better when Miami is good. Like, you just it's just it's just one of those things. So
everyone wants Miami and Florida State to be winning.
Right. Exactly.
We're tired of Clemson. Tired of it.
A little bit, yeah, definitely.
Sick of it. Alabama's got to go to. How about the defense? Myles Garrett got paid. They got Sheldon Richardson on that D-line.
Right.
Got some names.
Yeah, they do. So Sheldon Richardson, Olivier Vernon, who's just been consistent. He was a little bit overpaid in New York, but like he's a guy who will get it done for you. They do bring in, like I said, they got Jordan Elliott. Backing up those guys, backing up Myles Garrett is Adrian Claiborne. And he's a guy who has first-round talent, obviously. I know because we drafted him, but he didn't live up to it.
This rotation could be pretty scary.
Yeah. So you definitely want a defensive line rotation, especially, unfortunately, if Baker starts turning it over, you want guys to be fresh. Yeah. So what now? It's the same thing. Like, you'll kind of notice a little theme here, but like front line, stout. Back four, stout as hell. Denzel Ward.
I just love Greedy Williams' name. I love that he's a defensive back.
That's a defensive back's name, but he's a guy who I want him to step it up, and he needs to, because Denzel Ward that dude's nails. For as high as he was picked. Go ahead.
I think he will. I think he'll turn it. I think he'll have a much better year. I think last year caught him off guard. I think talking about the speed of the game. I think he lost, was behind a step all year. But I think he'll figure it out this year.
Yeah, and so the front four is good. The back four is good. I want to know now they get the Mac Wilson definitely has to step it up. BJ Goodson's a guy who's could do some things, and then they have Jacob Phillips, another LSU guy, the rookie I want to say, and there could be some guys in the mix. So last year there was a lot of turnover in that core, losing Schobert and Christian Kirksey the long time. I love Christian Kirksey too. So, but now you got young guys and they need to step it up. So I don't want those guys to be hidden either. I want them to shine and I want them to step up and kind of take this team over the top if they can get there.
Speaking of over the top, 6-10, another disappointing year in 2019.
Right.
What does it take? Because on paper they're fantastic. What is it going to take for this team to get to that next level?
Drew, sir, I think this is the year that it happens.
Okay.
So they went 6-10 in 2019. I have them going 9-7 this year. I like Kevin Stefanski's offense. With Case Keenum pushing Baker Mayfield, I think he, and he said this offseason, like he's willing to, he don't want to talk anymore. Like he just wants to play football, which is what everybody wanted to see him do. I think that gets them 3 more wins, and I can see them going 9-7, 10-6 if now I'll say this, if they beat Pittsburgh once, they sweep. That's my take on that. So if that happens, then I see them going 10-6. But if not, I can see them splitting and going 9-7 with this schedule and things like that. New offense throws people off. They don't really know how to react to it until about midway through the year, and they can take some games. So
unfortunately, I got 8-8.
Okay, so but still better. Yeah.
I still think Baker's gonna have his off games. I think he's gonna have some brilliant games. I think he's gonna have some amazing games this year. Right. But I think he's gonna also have some Baker Mayfield games.
Okay.
And I'm still not sold. Beckham Jr. plays this year.
Okay. Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get with him. He's a great receiver. He's one of the best in the league. But emotionally, that's what I mean. You know what you're gonna get from him on the playing field. But if his emotions are a little wild or anything like that,
I can see him
then
being like a Cespedes, like he did in Major League Baseball. Just up and pieced out one day.
Man, if it goes that bad for him, I think he's gotten his way a lot. So if he does that again, man, I want to say teams are going to shy away from him, even with that talent.
Because his numbers haven't been up the last few years.
Yeah, and he needs to have a prove-it year to, if he wants to get on another team, then he needs to have a prove-it year to do so. You know what I mean?
Very much so.
So I think he can. So I got him being a little bit better, and we'll see. The sky could be the limit for them. They can get right.
Okay. Well, last but not least, Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bengalas.
The Burrow Bengals.
Yeah. Number 1 pick in the draft.
Number 1 pick. I love how they had the first pick in every round. Like, they didn't trade any picks back in the day. You're like, no, they had the first pick every single round.
A traditional draft, I mean, in a sense, you know what I'm saying? So,
I love it.
I do think that they, obviously, you had to take Joe Burrow. You had to.
Oh, yeah.
They finally get rid of the Red Rocket.
Would they have been better suited getting Chase Young?
No. And that's what I'm saying. Like, they had to take Joe Burrow. It had to be there. And he was, Chase Young, I think, is the best player in this draft, but for what they need,
right. They had to have a quarterback.
Yeah, and
Dalton's days were done.
He could only get them so far, and I think he just it was time. Like you said, it was just time.
They had some great years with Dalton and
they did.
And Omar.
Yep. But they picked Joe Burrow number 1. Finally, get rid of the Red Rocket. They get T. Higgins in round 2 to add to what could be a very dynamic receiving core, which we'll get to in a second. But Drew, my question is this: before we actually get into it, do the Bengals pick number 1 in 2021?
No.
Okay. All right.
I think there's a bunch of really bad teams that could beat them out of it.
Okay.
I think they'll win. I think out of sheer rookie luck with Burrow and him having just enough talent, I think they win a few games. So
they won't have a conundrum on their hands with trying to take Trevor Lawrence.
No, I think they're out of the Lawrence sweepstakes. Okay.
All right. Cool. So, now they, just a couple more notes on them. They released longtime corner Dre Kirkpatrick, who is not with the team anymore.
That's gonna be so weird not seeing him in a Bengals.
Right. But they did. They're trying to. They did replenish some things like some positions here. So they signed Von Bell. They also get Trey Waynes. Right. You get DJ Reader. You get his services from the Texans. And then you also pick up Mackenzie Alexander, the young guy, on a 1-year contract, a 1-year prove-it deal for him. So they're trying to replenish some positions here. And I think it's a great time to just kind of delve into that offense, man. What you got?
Let's do it, man. I mean, it's Burrow's team.
Yeah.
When Ryan Finley's your backup, there's really no other option.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like it's Burrow day one.
Yeah.
And fantastic running back duo. That seems to be a pretty good team here in this division. It's a running back's dream here. I mean, I love Mixon and Bernard. I think they complement each other well.
Yes.
You don't miss a step when Bernard steps in.
I am a Joe Mixon truther. Like I love Joe Mixon. And then you got Gio Bernard too, man, who I love. Gio Bernard. Loved him when he came out of Carolina. So love that.
I mean,
Love
that
this
state
running back
game
duo.
solidified it for me. Like, he's GOAT status at UNC.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yep. God, I remember that TD. Like
whew.
he killed him.
Yeah.
But with all these weapons at the skill positions, why isn't this offense better? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, well, a lot of it has to do with AJ Green not being on the field.
True.
You know?
That's very true. He was not on the field, but to me, you have that, but this offensive line, man, like now they bring in, you have Jonah Williams. You do have him. You bring him in. And I want to say they picked up you have Xavier Suafilo. But when I started doing my deep dive into the Bengals, it turns out that their offensive line coach is bad. Like he is horrible. And he honestly, man, like exactly. So they have Zach Taylor, their coach, who was a young guy, and you kind of have to fill positions. Like you may not have the clout to really get the kind of staff that he wants, and he had to pick this guy, or maybe he didn't have to, but he did pick him, and then he's kind of defending him every step of the way, and he's just been bad, man. Like there's been a lot.
Sometimes you like your friends, and they're not good to you.
Yeah. So there was a lot of turnover with this offensive line, like people just kind of retiring, leaving the team, and things like that.
2 games, you got to look at other options.
Yeah. So, but they had multiple players leave the team. Like over Jim Turner, their coach, and he's still with the team. So does it get better? I don't know. Especially it needs to be better for Joe Burrow for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they got the offense on paper. It all is on Joe Burrow's shoulders. But what about this defense? Can this defense stop teams?
This D line is solid. This D line is definitely solid.
Dunlap is a perennial great player. Atkins.
Yeah, Geno Atkins can still get it done, and you bring in DJ Reader, like I said, Carlos Dunlap and Sam Hubbard, 2 guys who fly under the radar. Carlos Dunlap still getting it done, but Sam Hubbard is a guy who flies under the radar. You also have Carl Lawson backing him up, backing Sam Hubbard up. Now I don't know what is it. This division, man, is very very similar.
What are these linebackers? What's up
right.
with these linebackers?
I
don't recognize. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I don't know. I don't recognize any of these names.
Yeah, I'm worried about their linebacking core. I don't really recognize a lot of names either, and maybe that's part of the problem here. They need to get some talent in there.
Then we're screwed.
Yeah, like you maybe got to get some talent in there, but I do know about this secondary though, and I like Trey Waynes. Von Bell is a guy who he will stick you. Jesse Bates, man, out of Wake Forest. Love Jesse Bates. Bates. Love him. William Jackson. I want to say he is out of Houston, I believe. But he's another guy who I wanted when he came out, and he has just proved that he got taken exactly where he should have been taken, and has performed. So like he's a guy that I really really love. A lot of people don't like to throw at, and he's just continuing to shine. So, and then, like I said, you got Mackenzie Alexander backing Trey Waynes up. So the secondary's deep. Hide the linebackers, man.
Can any of them play linebacker?
Right, exactly. hide those linebackers, man. So, I do like the secondary, and I like the front seven, but I don't know what happens.
This schedule.
So about their schedule. You know, kind of looking at it.
2-14. There's only one way to go. You know, like I don't see them going. Hopefully, not 1-15. You know?
No, I don't see them going 1-15. I do have them with a little bump, but unfortunately, it's only 2 games. I have them going 4-12 in 2020.
I got 5-11.
Oh, so we're pretty much on there.
I think 5-11 keeps them out of that number 1 pick, though.
Yeah. But they're still going to be able to get in elite talent for where they'll probably be picking in the draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I hope, because, the Eagles start off slow. They start off slow. They got them week 3. I would die laughing if Burrows and the Bengals caught the Eagles off guard early on in the season.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, with teams early in the season, you don't know what they've been working on off season, and they can catch you. And then not only can they catch you, but it could hurt you tremendously down the road if you don't get it right. So
because it's on the Browns and the Eagles to lose to them. You know,
Yeah.
like, I mean, to beat them, like the Bengals could surprise and go 3-0 to start the season if they catch the right teams off guard.
Yep. And then, like, that fourth game is Jacksonville. So, with the weapons, I could really see it. But the offensive line has got to be better. Jim Turner, I'm talking to you. And
It's on you, coach.
right, and they've just got to be better, man. But like with that talented offense, and then with those pieces on defense, this team could sneak up on some people, and those other teams need to not let that happen. Like if you run up against a bad team, you need to beat them. Like it doesn't matter what happens, you have to beat the bad teams if you want to get to where you're going. So that's what I got. 4-12.
Sounds good, man. Well, what's your order? Who's winning this?
So I definitely have the Ravens coming out on top. After that, I have the Browns. I think that you might have two teams from this division get in if the Browns can get their stuff together. And, after that, then I have the Steelers. And unfortunately, the Bengals bringing up the rear again until they can get, put all those pieces together to actually win some games. That's what I have. So Bengals continue to bring up the rear.
All right, I got Ravens 1, and then I got both the Steelers and the Browns going 8-8. So I'm gonna get them tied.
Okay.
Battling it out. And then
Do you think two teams get in?
No, I don't think either one of those teams make the playoffs.
Okay.
Well,
right.
I mean, I'm not gonna say that yet. I'm gonna take that back because I need to look at the AFC as a whole. I don't know. 8-8 could get you somewhere with 17.
Little nugget for something we got coming up here. Little nugget.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, you gonna know our playoff picks here before too long.
Yes, sir.
Well,
But
what do we got next week?
Next week, NFC North, and I'm excited to dive into this Packers team that went 13-3 last year. I don't know how they went 13-3, but they went 13-3, man. So I want to see what this Vikings team is going to do as well. Yeah,
sure. Vikings. I mean, you got the QB controversy in Chicago. Like, I think it's a fun division.
I was just about to say
we got that for you next week.
Next week, tune in, baby. Tune in. Oh, Drew, give the people where they can find you at, man.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram at LaughWithHarrison, DrewHarrisonComedy.com. Follow that Instagram page for the show at nickel_dime football.
Yep, there you go.
Hit that
and you can find me
button so you can always find these shows.
Yes, and just follow me at the Kid Suds on Twitter. Definitely at nickel_dime football. I'm loving posting that content on that account now that I actually joined the 21st century, and you know what I mean. So, but definitely follow us there, man. And again, interact with us, like and subscribe. We love you guys, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, man. We'll see you next week.